So thank you to Samantha and Chelsea for getting us set up for this next part, which is what type of source is this? So we're also going to start with the poll here. And so this is just to see where we are, our knowledge track of source type. So which of the following is a source type? Library, journal article, or PDF? And so we'll take a moment here to answer, and then we'll get started. Cast your vote, and then we'll see what the results are. Okay, so what are the results so far, Robin? We'll talk about it. Okay, this makes me really happy. This is great. So, which of the following is a source type? Library, 7%. Okay. Journal article, 92%, and then PDF, 1%. This is great because it shows that we have a pretty good understanding. A library is not a source type because it is where we found the source. In other words, it's the location of the source, but it's not the source itself. Another example of this would be if you do a Google search and the search engine is not a source type. It's the tool that you use to find the source. A journal article is a source type because it's the work itself that we're going to be using to put our paper together. So that's perfect. It looks like a lot of people understood that. So I'm glad we're starting there. And then C, PDF, that's not a source type because it's actually the format that the source is in. Another example of a format would be print. So a book could be in print, a journal could be in print, be a PDF, etc. So I'm glad a lot of people understood that, but if you didn't, that's okay because we're going to talk about it more in depth. So next slide, please. Can we have the next slide? Or close down the poll, please? Thank you. Okay, so of course this would never happen to us that we procrastinated on our paper, but let's just say it did. And time is ticking down. There's 20 minutes before you need to turn in your paper, your research paper. You're putting the final touches on everything, but you're uncertain about how to reference a certain source. Just like Samantha talked about, we've gone online, we've made sure that our sources don't contain any misinformation. We know, like Chelsea talked about, that we're going to need to give credit where credit is due and put citations in based on the sources that we found. But now we're at the part of the writing process where we're putting together our reference list, and we're not sure how to do that because we don't know what sources we're even looking at. Is the thing in front of us a blog? Is it a web page? Who wrote the chapter? Why doesn't it have a date? Questions abound. So let's see what to do when we're in this scenario. Next slide, please. So the first thing is, don't worry, take a deep breath. You can see by this picture, maybe we're not this devastated that we're in tears. I hope not. But maybe we're a little confused because we're not sure of the source type. And again, therefore, we don't know what format we should be using to put our references in. So if you're looking at a source, even if it seems unfamiliar, you're not sure if it's a journal article, you're not sure if it's a blog, that's okay. Remember that all references serve the same purpose, to help readers identify and locate the source. So in other words, just like Chelsea was talking about, where we're putting citations into our paper to give credit where credit is due and to back up what we're saying, those citations are going to reference the sources that we're using in our reference list. So if you've gathered information that helps readers identify and locate the source, then you're on the right track. And again, no need to worry. So move on from there. So before we put time into finding the source type, I like to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I hope that you do too. I bet that you do. So looking at things from a big picture point of view, and it very much ties into what Samantha was talking about evaluating our sources. Knowing the source type helps us to understand how it fits into the research. So the purpose of the source is the purpose to let an expert speak in their own words, such as maybe an interview on YouTube or something like that. Is the purpose of it to share data? Maybe it's a test or a data set. How was it created? Is it a meta-analysis where we're looking at literature in the field and coming to a conclusion from it? And how much expert review has it undergone? So is it peer-reviewed? Is it not? Again, just like Samantha was saying, we're not making a judgment about whether or not the source type is good. We're just trying to understand whether or not that source type fits into our research and why we're using it. And of course, like if we're in that midnight hour and we're trying to put together a reference list, probably this second point about why source type matters is the one we're looking at the most, which is the source type determines the reference format when we're putting together a reference list. So yeah, thank you. So one way to think about this is that all sources are going to fall into 4 big groups. And so when we're looking at something, we can ask ourselves, is it textual? Is it data? Is it audiovisual? Is it online media? So what you'll do when you're looking at, maybe you have a style guide or you're looking online, you'll decide which one of these big buckets does your source fall into. And then from there, you can find examples so that you can understand which template you would use to plug in the components of your reference. So sometimes it's pretty clear what we're working with, probably in the case of a journal article, a book is a book. But sometimes, especially with online media, it's not as clear what we're working with. And so you could go to this larger category of online media, and then from there kind of see if there are examples that seem similar to what you have in front of you. Thank you. Okay, so just going deeper into this to understand if what we're working with as far as those bigger categories. If it's textual, that makes, that's pretty obvious. Usually we're reading it, it's a book, it's an article, it's a report. Data and assessments, we're using, that source is used to measure or evaluate something. So this would be a test or a scale. Sometimes this one's a little trickier because maybe sometimes when we're looking at a journal article, a test or a measure is being referred to in that journal article. But it's important to remember that that's not the test itself. The test, if we're using it as a source, will be the test as if we're going to take it ourselves. So it'll have the items, it'll have questions for us to fill out as if we were the data participant. So an example of this might be a scale that researchers or psychologists use to understand if someone is depressed. And, that would be an example of that. So remember, for this one, the test is in front of us. Audiovisual media is usually pretty obvious. It's something that you watch or listen to, so a video on YouTube, a podcast. And then online media, it's kind of a catch-all for everything else that we find online, AI chats, web pages, and social media posts. And there are many, many other examples. But of course, you would start there, and then you would kind of dig deeper to find the example that fits what you have in front of you the most. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so something that we need to think about when we're trying to identify the source type is that the source is not how you found it. Samantha talked about how we may use ChatGPT to identify a list of sources that might work well for a research paper, but ChatGPT is not the source type. It's a tool that we use to find our sources. Like we may use a database like CiteNet or PubMed, but those two things are, again, tools that we use to find our sources, but not the sources themselves. So in that poll question at the top of this piece, we talked about how a library is not a source type, and it's the same idea. So focus on what you find rather than how you found it. And here, although we may be excited about how we found it at the library, that is not going to be relevant to identifying our source type. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's say we've done our very best to identify the source type, but we're still a little lost. We're not sure even what, where in those 4 larger categories our source would fit. We can use this plan to put something in our reference list that'll be correct, that'll work for our reference, and that will help someone to locate and identify the source that we're using in our paper. So most all references, I hate to say all because there are always exceptions, but most references are going to have 4 parts: author, date, title, and source. Or when I say source, I mean where you located it, where you got it. So the format for any reference that we're going to put together is going to be the same, except for where we put our italics, or what is italicized. So when in these 2 examples, this one being a web page, here we have the author, which is the World Health Organization. We have the date, which is 2025, or August 22nd, 2025. And then we have the title here. Notice that it is italicized. The title of the work is italicized here. When we have a work that stands alone, like a book or a web page, we're going to put italics on, or we're going to italicize the title. And then the source here is going to be the website. So, and then, we have our handy dandy reference. We put it together without necessarily having to look at a reference example because we have all of these elements. Same thing here, the article. We have our author here, or authors. We have our date, 2024. We have a title, but notice that it's not italicized because it is part of a greater whole. This is an article that's within a journal. So rehabilitation psychology is the journal title, this larger whole. So it is italicized. And then we have the volume number and the issue number, pages, and then the DOI. Okay, so let's say we're looking at those 4 parts that the date, the title, but we don't have one of them. And that's why I hesitated to say that all sources are going to have those things available to us, because sometimes something is missing, but that's fine. That doesn't mean that our reference is going to be incorrect if we use what's in front of us. So see what's there, no need to dig for information. Remember that the main point of what we're trying to do is to help the person who's reading our research or article to find the source that we use. So if we put everything there that's in front of us, they should be able to find the source that we used. Okay, so let's go over a couple of examples. This is from a table that we have online, and it's also in our style guide about what to do in specific instances when a particular component is missing from our template. So here we have a missing date. Usually, like we talked about before in those components, we'd want to have the date. But if we don't, we're going to use a placeholder. So instead of, if we don't have a date, we're going to use ND, no date, for the year. In this example, we have the author, which is what we normally have, and then we have no date here, ND, and then we put the title in as we normally would, and then we put in our source. And then you'll see here that in your citation, so within your paper, it would still be the same as what you would do for any other source, except you would just use ND because you don't have that date. In the second example, and this one's pretty common when we're looking at journals, we don't have the issue number. So instead of digging for information or making something up that seems right, we're just going to go ahead and omit it. So you see here that we have the author, we have the title. Here we have the title of the journal itself, but we have the volume number, but we're missing the issue number. So that's fine. We just omit it because it isn't there. But we do include the information that we do have. So that would be the article number in this case, and then the DOI. And then you see here that in the citations that within your paper, this wouldn't change because you're missing the issue number. It would be the same as with any other source. So the author and the date. Okay, so in summary, Source types give information about how and why a source was created, as well as how it fits into your research. So again, that big picture, this very much ties into evaluating our sources. We want to know why we're using what we're using. We want to identify the source type because it will tell us what information we're going to pull from it to put into our research. APA style references include 4 elements. So these are the things that you're going to want to include, even if you're lost, even if you're not sure what reference template you should use and you're looking in your guide or online. We're always going to want to try to find the author, the date, the title, and source. And again, follow this plan if you're unsure. And then cite the source and not where you found it. So a library, ChatGPT, Google, these are not sources. They're tools to help you find the sources that you're going to use. And the file format, like the PDF, like print, is not a source either. It's just the way that you're going to consume the source or just format of it, how you're finding it. And then cite what's there, no need to dig for more information. So sometimes we think that because we can't complete the template as it is in the book or online, we think that we're missing something or that we need to find something to put there. Do not, just use what you have in front of you and use that. And as long as you're using what you have in front of you, you're helping the person who's reading your work to locate what's there or to locate your source. And then that ties into this, missing information gets a placeholder or it's completely omitted. Use what you've got, do your best, and good luck.